Mm-hmm.
But he was in a very. I saw an interview that was after the speech, and he said something in answer to a question that I have written about for as long as the man's been running for president and been president. There continues to be this outcry that Mr. President stop tweeting.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I have said all along, if the president stopped tweeting, the mainstream media in this country would not change a whit at what they're doing. They would still spend 97% of the time, 93% of the time criticizing him. And therefore, there would be nobody of any size or magnitude to defend him. And so what he said in answer to the question, look, when I tweet, I communicate with hundreds of millions of Americans. If I give that up, there is nobody out there that can replace it. So no, I'm not giving it up. I'm not stopping, which I thought was absolutely the right thing to say, because the idea that he should give up telling the American people, as brash as he is, and sometimes as crude as he is, exactly what he feels, that's what endears him to us.
Exactly.
Because it's honesty. And so I wrote to a contact that I have in the White House and I said, please tell the president, I totally agree. I've been writing about this for several years. He should never give up tweeting because it is his contact with the American people, his only real contact with the American people.
Well, the thing is, not only is it his contact with the American people, you have to remember that Ronald Reagan did the same thing. Ronald Reagan couldn't get good press, so he decided that he would go directly to the people. And everyone acts like this is something new. It's not. What are you drinking, man? Give me some.
I just had I've been on the phone a lot today. I'm having a Diet Coke. I'm sorry.
Yeah. But Ronald Reagan did the same thing, and they do it because, you have to have access to the people unfiltered. I remember when Ronald Reagan was getting dogged. I mean, the media just really dogged Ronald Reagan until he got shot. Remember? I mean, the guy couldn't do anything right until he got shot. Then they gave him a little break, but not much of one. And
not very long. Not very long.
Yeah. But
after it looked like he was going to recover, the long knives came out.
Yeah. And so we, the American people, we need to be vigilant. We need to pay attention. And it just amazes me how still today, after all that's going on in the country, people aren't paying attention to the situation in Iran, the situation in Afghanistan, the situation here in America. Today this week we had a discussion about reparations. And I'm thinking to myself and aloud, and I'm writing a piece as we speak. How can you talk about reparations for blacks when black people can't even walk down the streets of their neighborhood without being shot or fear of being shot, not by a policeman, but by another citizens who happens to look or have their skin color?
Right.
How can we talk about reparations when our children are being dumbed down? They're closing all the schools. The children are being bussed out of their communities, and you're talking about reparations when kids are growing up in areas that are like third world countries in America. I remember, and I told you this story before, I think. I was in London right after Hurricane Katrina. And these people in London would say to me, everyone would say to me, I never knew it was that kind of poverty in America. Because remember, they're showing all the poor people, at the Superdome and all these, just poor people, man, just white and black, but they were just poor people. And these people are talking about reparations. Reparations for what? I mean, let's provide these people with an opportunity to pursue the American dream and quit BSing. Today, we have bastardized all of the programs that were put in place to help black people enter the American mainstream and enter and pursue the American dream, whether it was the SBA, whether it was
Right.
minority business development. They diluted it with white women. White women are not a minority and not a socially disadvantaged class. Gays, Hispanics, Latino, Asians. These people were not descendants of slaves or experienced the kind of discrimination that black people achieved. If it was an Asian guy in the South in the 50s, and it was a white fountain and a colored fountain, he drank out of the white fountain. It was a Mexican, he drank out of the white fountain. So how do we have anything in common? And the thing is, anyway, but I thought that the whole reparations issue, for me, is a moot issue until they address the issues of people being able to live in their own neighborhoods without fear of being killed, like they're in a third world country.
Right. Now, I like you, I'm working on a piece on reparation. And the more I wrote it, the more I was saying to myself, what's going on here is just ludicrous. And then I saw the hearings. And the fiasco that there where people were yelling and screaming because a particular person said, there anybody around that had slaves? They haven't been around for a long time. There are no slaveholders in this country. And the question I wrestled with, I was finally literally working very diligently for you, Charles, to have an answer to a question that I've been asking all week, trying to research for when I came on the show.
What's that?
How do we know?
Kim Moline, co-owner of the Wingstop restaurants in Lansing and South Holland.
Hey, Tom, I've got to be honest. Although
we'll skip commercials. Go ahead. How do we know?
So how do we know? How do we know if Charles Butler is a black man that he is descended from slaves? So that we can prove that Charles Butler is descended from slaves, and therefore, if we're going to do reparation, then we can. Okay, how do we prove that Charles Butler, other than oral history, prove that he was from a black family that was enslaved?
Well, I think there were great records that were kept. But just look at my family on my mother's side. On my father's side, it's pretty clear that we landed, that my forefathers were in Haiti, got sent to Florida. Part of the family ran into the Seminole tribe and became Seminole. My father's grandmother was half Seminole. She had hair way down her back. She looks just like an Indian. She is an Indian. She's Seminole. On my father's side, they come from Georgia. But anyway, and then on my mother's side of the family.
So here's the
on my father's side of the family. My grandfather changed his name from Stapleton. You know the Stapleton singers. My grandfather changed his name from Stapleton to Hayes. So my mother's maiden name, instead of being Stapleton, is Hayes, because my grandfather ran away from home, became a cowboy out in Wyoming. What people don't know is that the origin of the term cowboy was these black men riding on horses, and they called them cowboys. There were a whole bunch of cowboys, and they were black, who rode the plains and herded the cattle, and took them from Texas and Wyoming up to these stockyards. My grandfather was one of them. But even before him, there were all these black cowboys. But long story short, it becomes a little convoluted, and for me, I'm sure that they could trace the white influence and the black influence, and how far removed you are from your original DNA. Like you look at Barack Obama, the Africans considered Barack Obama not a real Kenyan because his mother is white. They don't call him a half Kenyan. They say he's impure. That's what the Kenyans say. He's impure.
Okay, but you're addressing the issue that I spent a good part of this week running down, and I talked to a woman at Ancestry.com.
Yeah.
Today.
Yeah.
based on a DNA sample, they can tell your heritage.
Right.
And if you do not come back as pure black, then some portion of your family was never slave.
Well, that's not. Well, this is the thing.
If you're never slave.
But this is the thing about that. Let me interject this into the equation for you, so that you clearly understand. The slave master, the overseers, white men who worked on the plantation, raped black women, and black men and black boys historically.
Right.
People don't want to talk about that issue of slavery. Not only did that go on during slavery, it went on from Reconstruction until the 70s, where these men were raping women, like Strom Thurmond. He raped his housekeeper and got a black baby and kept it secret that he raised this black baby. And this woman comes out like 20 years ago. And yes, Strom Thurmond's after he died, Strom Thurmond's my daddy. Well, where were you on this when Strom Thurmond was talking about how Negroes would never be equal to white folks? Well, he was my daddy. That was her excuse. He was my daddy. So she had this, this is black kid. I mean, she's clearly a black woman, but it was Strom Thurmond's daughter. Anyway, long story short, so you have all of that in the mix, Dan, where you have all of these people who were raped or by white men and had these babies, man. So yeah, and in our society, in the black society, the black men accepted these babies because they were in love with the woman, and and they had to deal with that situation. And I just, as a boy and as a young man, I couldn't understand. Like, I had a cousin that had been raped by a white guy, and my cousin had this baby. Now the white man disappeared, and there was a whole bunch of tension in the town. But my great grandfather, a great grand uncle, his name was Wilbur Bunkley. He told the white folks and he told the Klan, he said, you can come down here if you want, but our families won't be the only one grieving. He said he raped so-and-so's daughter, and he had to pay. So, I mean, all of, that's why they wanted the hands of black folks. The original gun laws, so if you didn't know this, the original gun law to take guns out of the hands of freed black men so that they could protect themselves is called the Blue-Gray Gun Law. There was a man who came to the Heartland Institute to talk about this issue, guns and gun laws and blacks and disarming blacks. He didn't know about the Blue-Gray Gun Law. That was the first gun law to disarm blacks. Isn't that amazing? And this is a guy who did all this research, and he never ran across this law except when Charles Butler told him about it. And when we went to, when the city of Chicago went to defend itself against blacks or against blacks and brown citizens protecting themselves against criminals, the law that they used is a law called Cruikshank. It was a Supreme Court ruling that said black men could not own guns. And that's the law. That it was a law that went down like in 1880 something, but that was the law that the city of Chicago used in 2010 to try to keep guns out of the hands of its black and brown citizens. Isn't that amazing? Democrats.
I thought it was also amazing, and I know we're short on time here, but I did want to follow what you were saying. Is that the Democrats would admit that the Democratic Party was responsible for the Ku Klux Klan and a lot of the black laws that were passed after the Civil War and a lot of bad things during the Civil War, transferred that responsibility to the Republicans, when it was the Republicans who actually were in fact in support of freedom for the black people in this country.
Well,
but again, it's another situation where they're trying to twist. But the reaction that I've seen after the hearing, first of all, it was I don't want to be politically correct what I'm about to say, but I don't want to be terribly offensive. If I were a black person and I was listening to this hearing because I wanted to hear what the logic would be and why we should consider reparation for black people who might have been descended for slaves, I would have been embarrassed by the behavior of the black people at the meeting.
Well, this is the deal. They were, and if you look at CNN, there was the woman who comes on in the morning. I can't come up with her name. She used to be on with Como. She's doing a show from like 6 to 9 Eastern time every morning. She did a show yesterday. It's on CNN, and she did a show yesterday where she had this panel, and the black guy was saying basically what I'm saying about reparations, about Trump, the great job that Trump's doing. And, it was blowing her mind. She couldn't take it. You should look at the interview. But if you look at the people who are talking about reparations is not the black folks in America. The black folks in America are saying, okay, how come my child can't go to school at the neighborhood school down the street, and I have to put them on a bus and send them somewhere send them a half an hour away from my home? Or high school or junior high school. Okay. Why isn't my neighborhood safe? Why are there potholes in my neighborhood? Why are there people on the corner selling drugs in my neighborhood? See, these are issues. Don't talk to me about reparations. Talk to me about creating an environment where I can pursue the opportunities of the American dream. But to your point about Democrats and Republicans, I want to address it real quick, 60 seconds here. And that is, you have to remember this. I hear these people talking about the New Deal. The New Deal specifically denied black people access to Social Security, black folks access to ADC, black folks access to any of the programs that would have benefited them. The Southern Democrats made sure that those exclusions were written into the law. And everybody tries to overlook that the New Deal was a racist policy. The Great Society destroyed the black family. All the policies in the Great Society, again, destroyed the essence of the black family. Now go. It's on you.
And the war on poverty.
Well, the war on poverty, Great Society. That's what I'm talking about. Great Society.
Yeah. Well, the war on poverty was a separate policy than the Great Society. War on poverty was a separate program to keep the black people in check. However, my point I want to make is that I look at what's going on and I'm saying the greatest reparation that this country has paid is what Donald Trump is putting black people back to work.
Well, it's really
the
not.
lowest.
It's not
unemployment rate since the '60s.
Yeah, but that's a misnomer, and that's a bad stat. The reality is, black men with a college degree, black professionals, are still being denied jobs, are still being denied access to quality jobs. They're pushing white women, they're pushing foreigners, they're pushing anyone but a black man. So nobody wants to address that. They're bringing all of these foreign workers in here. The U.S. Commission on Civil Rights has said that these foreigners and these illegals, as well as legals, cost black households alone $10 billion in income every year, just because they're taking jobs. So, and they keep talking about, well, we need jobs. Well, the fact of the matter is, I don't see any blacks being hired on construction jobs. I don't see any blacks or whites being hired on those construction jobs on buildings, on highways, or anything else. They're Mexicans and a few white dudes. That's it. And some white women and a couple of black women. But for the majority of the workers, they're Hispanic. And I don't know if they're legal or illegal, but I can tell you that those numbers in terms of employment, the black unemployment is very high, but you have to remember that they quit counting people who stopped looking for a job. So, there are a lot of things going on.
That's not. They do that with white people too. They stop counting when they quit looking for a job. It just isn't black people. They do that with white people.
Yeah, too. But you were talking about black unemployment. That's the only reason I said that.
Right, I was talking about black unemployment.
Yeah, that's the only reason I said that.
But it's
employment period.
So anyway, so you got to go.
No, you got 3 minutes.
Sorry, we only had a half an hour.
You got 3. Yeah, we got.
I got 3 minutes. 3 minutes.
You know, you can come back anytime.
You're asking me to try and
Dan.
You asked me to say something meaningful in 3 minutes. I can do that. I can do that.
I know you can.
I want to comment just briefly on what you said about being presidential and the fact that the president decided not to attack. That's caused a huge problem for the Democrats because he's not going. Not yet. He's not going to war, and we're not going to put tens of thousands of American boys in Iran. It's not going to happen.
Right.
We don't need to do that if we. And we've already got the warships right there with the Abraham Lincoln Carrier Group, but we also have people from Egypt and Saudi Arabia and Jordan and Qatar and other places that are anti-Iranian. So it's not that I don't want to make sure this comes across the right way.
Okay.
It's not that important. They're not that important anymore, except that there's going to speed up their centrifuges, and that's what has to be taken out.
You know what will happen? Israel will say, you know what? You guys are moving too slow. Boom, 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 boom. That's what's going to happen. And
there'll be a lot of people. There'll be a lot of rattling of swords and stuff by everybody else, but no people will walk away from it.
Well, the thing is,
that's what
Israel will be ready to go to war, and we will back Israel. That's the bottom line. So Iran can rattle their saber all they want. We have a real president in office today who's not trying to be presidential, who's not trying to be politically correct, who doesn't give two shits what the rest of the world thinks, and he's going to go do what we need to do. The problem with past presidents, as with Mitch McConnell and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, is that they want to be presidential. And they want to be presidential, and they want to be nice. And guess what? We don't need that. We don't need that. We need people to make decisions. Nice. Yeah, we need people to make decisions and provide when we go to war, make sure we go to war to win.
Yeah. Shocking thing of the week.
Go.
Shocking thing of the week. Do I have time to do 30 seconds?
I'll go.
The Defense Department and the National Security Agency deciding that they were not going to tell President Trump of their activities because they couldn't trust him. That is an example of the deep state now permeating the Treasury Department, the Justice Department, and now the military.
Wow.
He's got to clean it up.
Wow. That's deep, man. That's real deep.
Absolutely.
When did you hear this?
Yep. A couple of days ago.
That got past me.
Real serious problem. Well, you're a busy guy.
So no, was this UP or mainstream media? What was it?
This was on Fox News and Newsmax, where I write. Did a story on it. So the idea that the deep state in control of the military is deciding what they're going to tell the president because they can't trust him to not tell anybody else about it. So they're going to do it without his permission. He is the commander-in-chief, and they're saying, we're going to go around the commander-in-chief. We're going to decide what we should do as a nation.
Wow.
And that is a classic example of what happened in the FBI and Justice with the collusion and everything else. We've got people still in Washington and deeper and deeper and deeper who are making decisions for this country, who are not elected officials and believe they have the right to make the decision to do whatever they want to do, regardless of who it affects or doesn't affect. And that's, to me, that is the scariest thing that happened this week.
Well, I think for me, it was the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court coming down saying that, yes, we can try. Now you can try people on state and federal charges to stare decisis effort that the court felt so strongly about that Clarence Thomas wrote a concurring opinion. So I thought that was interesting. But this thing, see, Trump can get this thing cleaned up with. He just has to. He just has to put his foot down, man. But he's on top of it. He wants things to happen, so I think they're going to happen.
Now, speaking about one of my favorite justices, Clarence Thomas, who just happens to be a black man, besides being a really great lawyer, but he happens to be a black man who is a really great lawyer, which I don't think is necessarily unusual, although Clarence Thomas is a very unusual person. But did you hear what he said this week in an opinion?
Which opinion?
Because we.
Oh yeah, about
essence,
changing.
Talking about Roe.
About changing precedent, not sticking with precedents.
Yes, changing precedent.
Yeah.
Just because it was wrong doesn't mean it gets to stand. And he didn't say Roe versus Wade, but he was talking about the idea that the court could reverse itself, and that it's got all the people messed up. And then the other ruling this week was. Go ahead, sir.
Well, look at Plessy versus Ferguson. That was changed. I mean, we've had Dred Scott. Dred Scott was overruled. 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment. So it's not like we haven't done this before. So yeah. Yes.
Okay. All right. I stay too long.
No, I have a good friend of mine. You might want to tune in and listen to her. Her name is Lori Yokohama. She's part of she's a committeeman here in Chicago and very prominent Republican. Ran for office several times. She's an esteemed lawyer, and we had a Trump party at her house. In fact, I'm gonna let you say hello to her. Let's see here.
Okay.
Hello, Lori. Hello, Lori.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good.
Yes.
I introduced you already to our audience and to Dan Perkins, who is with us for a minute. And Dan is a contributor and has been coming on my show for years. Hell of a writer. Has written novels about the things that he's written about terrorism have all come true. And these are supposed to be fictional novels, but I think the terrorists were reading his novels and going out and implementing. But anyway, it's a wonder he hasn't had a visit from the FBI. I mean, he probably has. He just hasn't told me.
Yeah, but don't they say that truth is more scary than fiction?
It is, and it
is,
especially.
And that's what people say about my books. They can't detect whether it's fiction or fact. And I said that's my job as a novelist is to confuse the lines and scare the bejesus out of you. So are you in public office in Chicago now?
I am. I'm not in public office per se. As Charles mentioned, I am the 4th Ward Republican committee person or committeeman in the city of Chicago. So it is an elected position. But I have to tell you, Dan, it means you do a lot of work, all right? And it's basically pro bono. We don't get paid for it, but we try to represent the community and the conservative values and the Republican position within the community.
That's great.
And so if I could ask you one more question, then I won't take any more of your time.
That's fine.
In June of 2019, does the black community in Chicago see President Trump different than they did in 2016?
I would say I hope so. The problem that I see with regard to the Republican Party is they have horrible messaging and communication skills. So the accomplishments of the president are not filtering down. As we know, the media is not reporting anything that he has accomplished in the 2.5, 3 years that he's been in office. And unfortunately, that's unfortunate. It's unfortunate for the community because it also gives people in the community an opportunity to take advantage of what he's been able to achieve despite all of the obstacles that the opposing party, as well as members of the Republican swamp, have put in front of him to try to stop him from being effective and successful.
Now, Dan,
in answer to your, go ahead.
No, you finish. Because I just have one more question, and I need to shut up because you're supposed to be on. It's your time. But go ahead and finish.
No. I always think it's great to have dialogue. Okay, people, go ahead.
So The other question I have, you said that Republicans do a terrible job of communications. Do you apply that to the president?
No, in the sense that he is trying to tell the public what he has been able to achieve. But if nobody picks it up, in other words, if the media doesn't pick it up, both via radio or TV, and if you have multiple members of the media that are taking what he says and either not reporting it correctly or not reporting it at all, then, people are unaware of what he's been able to accomplish.
But if the media is dominated by the newspapers and the ABC, CBS, NBC, and CNN and MSNBC, they control most of the communications going out to the public, and it's 93% negative, then, and I mean this is all respect, if the Republicans don't control or get access to that media because it's controlled by the other side, how can they become better messengers and carriers of the message if they can't get the time?
Well, and that's what we're trying to do. We are trying to use grassroots efforts to go ahead and get the message out. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about even just word to word, email blasts. As Charles had mentioned, we had a function on Tuesday when the president was announcing his reelection campaign and his decision to run for re-election. So we made a concerted effort to bring people together, to have a watch party. And in the state of Illinois, we had anywhere between, I want to say 80 to 90 to 100 watch parties, which when you think about it in the context of the whole U.S., I believe there were approximately 1,000 watch parties total. And we had 80 to 90 of them in the state of Illinois.
But we need to point out.
State as blue.
Go ahead. Yeah, this is a blue state. So regardless of the, of how people vote, Cook County votes Democrat. The rest of the state is totally neutralized in terms of their vote because the rest of the state's red. Cook County is blue. The rest of the state's red.
Yeah, but Dan's question was, so what is the Republican Party, if I understood his question correctly, doing to try to counter all of the negative media? Is that correct, Dan?
Yeah, because if they can't get access to the mainstream media, either radio, television, or newspaper, they don't have much chance of changing the narrative. I mean, they have Fox, and I don't know what else in terms of conservative media, and myself writing and Charles doing the show, but not anywhere near the power of influence that the New York Times and the major networks have, and Washington Post and the Chicago Tribune, and on and on and on.
But I think the beauty is
in controlling the message.
But I think the beauty is because we have all of this media, because we have all of this information flowing, people are making their own decisions. And I saw that in an interview at CNN. The interview earlier, there were people there who had voted for Barack Obama twice, but voted for Donald Trump this time. Those people are still there. They're going to vote for the president because he's doing exactly what we want him to do. And these are people who want the border closed. They want America to be great again. I was reading an article today where Giant Bicycle Company is moving its operation from Taiwan back to America. So this made in China thing is fading. Who's responsible for that? Donald Trump. Everybody knows this. Everybody knows that he can't just pull all the jobs back immediately. The American people are smarter than that. And Democrats, whatever they say, they go, well, he was supposed to bring jobs back up. But the American people know that he's slowly, and they see it. They see it in their stores. They see it amongst their friends. People are talking about Buy America, Made in America, and no news, mainstream news media is going to carry this because they're vested and controlled by whom? By the companies. GE owns NBC. Why would GE talk about Made in America when it's using cheap labor overseas? The U.S. Chamber of Commerce has bought off the House and the Senate, so we're not going to get any help from them. And the American workers know this because they're out of jobs, their children are out of jobs, their wives are out of jobs, their brothers and sisters are out of jobs, their families have been totally displaced by foreign workers. It used to be just Detroit was impacted. The whole country hasn't been impacted by made in China. And Donald Trump has articulated very well how these people stole our jobs and how we get them back. And he's doing it through tariffs. He's doing it through policies. He's doing it through deregulation. Hey, we had a guy, Amy had a guy. I'm sorry, Lori had a guy.
Charles, I apologize for interrupting you, but I'm already late for another interview.
Gotcha, man.
Thank you for allowing me to meet your friend, and good luck with your challenge, and hopefully we'll talk again someday. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Great.
Thanks, Dan.
Good talking to you.
Now, Lori, you had an event. It was the Asian American. It was an Asian American advocacy group, and you had Todd Ricketts come in. And I tell you, it was well attended. The people were just super. They stayed. They talked to Ricketts as long as they could. I saw people networking. I saw people talking. It was just a tremendous event. I really felt at home at that and very welcomed at that event.
Thank you. And Charles, that really was the purpose and the goal. And what I'm talking about is a comfort level, okay, for what I referred to when I was making my comments were the forgotten, okay? Mm-hmm. Those people who have conservative values, that believe in America. And, it seems like, at least within the state of Illinois, the Republican Party has forgotten about us. And I'm not talking about any one particular group, but I'm talking about us as a unified group. So we're talking about Latinos, we're talking about Blacks, we're talking about Asians, we're talking about women, and we're also even talking about white men, okay, who feel as if the Illinois, Republican Party has forgotten about them.
They have.
So one of the comments that I made was that we are the super majority, and until the Illinois Republican Party recognizes that they can't win an election without us, they will never win another election. So I thought it was great that people were meeting each other, networking, okay, realizing that we all have similar goals, we all have similar beliefs as to where we would like to see not only the country, but even just the state of Illinois, the direction that we want it to go. Well, so I greatly appreciate you coming and attending the event.
Well, it was wonderful. It always re-energizes me to be around like-minded people. And they were definitely, no, seriously, because, you talk to people, and I talk to people often who are so whacked out, and, they'll say things like, I hate Donald Trump, he's a racist. I said, well, maybe I missed something, but give me an example of Trump's racism. And the first thing they want to say is Charlottesville. And I go, no, there were good people on both sides. The protesters attacked the marchers. Let's be clear who attacked whom, and the marchers protected themselves. So obviously two groups came to fight. And not everybody who was a protester was a white nationalist. Who was a marcher, I should say, was a white nationalist, and not every protester wanted to hurt these people who were marching. So, it was a bad situation. They got out of hand, but I think it should have been handled better by the local police, and the governor probably should have called in the National Guard. But he had issues of his own.
Exactly. And, every single incident, they seem to want to put the blame on the president. But as you mentioned, it's, what happened to the local law enforcement? They didn't anticipate that, that they should realize that there could be problems associated with that gathering. So the president wasn't there. I mean, he wasn't the one inciting the problems. So
they said, well,
I can't agree
Donald
with you
Trump has since he's been president, hate crimes have increased. He embraced his white nationalists. I said, when has he embraced white nationalists? Give me an example. And they go, well, he the things that he says. I said, well, what about the things that I say?
You better watch it. They may come after you next, Charles.
Well, they try to, but the reality is, people make their own decisions. People aren't that easily brainwashed. People know their consequences for their actions, and we need to deal with that. And people need to understand that. And I'm not my brother's keeper. So if you decide to go out and hit somebody upside the head with a baseball bat because you don't like the way they look, the consequences are on you, not on me. Regardless of what I say or how you think I incite you, as people supposed to be that weak minded. But see, that's that whole political correct crap, and the fact that we aren't supposed to be able to talk about our lives in America. And no, we're not good. Like, what really kills me, Amy, is when I hear people say, well, we need to reunite this country. When has this country ever been united? When it was founded, you had the rebels, the colonists, the so-called Americans battling the loyalists. Okay, then they came together. They the guys who just could not bear not being under the king and queen, they left the country. But you still had people in this country who the Democrats and the Whigs who were opposed to each other and had different and varying views on government, on the direction of the country, etc. We fought the issue of slavery from the inception of this country to today. We're still dealing with a race issue. We're still dealing with. So now they want to talk about socialism versus capitalism. Well, that's not even a discussion, really.
Well, no, to some people it is. I mean, think about it. Look at all the people that are supporting the Democratic candidates, and every day they keep moving farther and farther to the left. The problem is, I don't believe that the majority of the people that are supporting a socialist agenda have any concept of what that means. I think it sounds really nice to them, on the surface. Oh, you get free things. And we're going to go ahead and tax the rich. I mean, there's always that comment. We're going to keep taxing the rich and taxing the rich. And so you have these people that are jumping aboard the socialist, train. But
you can tax the rich all you want, but there are not enough rich people to take money from. So then they have to take money from the middle class, working class people. That's what's happening here in Illinois. They talked about raising taxes, but who they raise taxes on? The middle class.
Of course, this happens, And Charles, the interesting thing about all of our politicians, have you ever heard any of them indicate how they were going to go ahead and get spending, under control? None of them. None of them ever take a look at how we're spending the revenue that is generated in this state, in this nation, and figuring out a way to go ahead and cut some of the ridiculous spending. It's always, how are we going to create more revenue? How are we going to tax the people?
And this is the thing about this is the thing about creating more revenue. See, this is the thing of people like Barack Obama and minions like him who've never had a job, who've never met payroll, who've never been out here earning money. They talk about revenue. It shouldn't be called revenue because revenue is something that you earn. These people take, so it shouldn't be called revenue. That is a misnomer. It should be called something else. And I really haven't thought of the word, but revenue is something that's generated through work and perseverance and business. The government you to pay a tax. That is not revenue. That is seizing of dollars. If you and I don't pay our registration fee for the license on our car, which is a tax, they call it revenue generating. No, it's a tax. It's a cost. It's a taking. Why do we have to pay $200 for a car registration when so the money's supposed to go to building better roads, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Well, it's kind of like the lottery money was supposed to go for paying education. The lottery money is gone for increase in salaries. It's gone for bigger office buildings. It's gone for everything almost except for education.
Exactly. I mean, look at our educational system in the state of Illinois, which is abysmal. I mean, one of the things that they should be looking at is look at all of the school districts. We have school districts in the state of Illinois, and I believe it's the state of Florida. They have less than 80, but they can still function. Think about the cost saving if you were to centralize some of these school districts, eliminate pension costs, eliminate salaries, eliminate administrative costs associated with supporting that many school districts.
But that's part of the Democratic machine.
Did you know? Of course, but did you know that the number one employer in the state of Illinois is government?
Yeah, because everyone else has moved out. You had Cancer Treatment Centers of America gone. You know, they keep talking about taxing the rich. Well, we have the highest exodus of millionaires in the country, the state of Illinois. The state of Illinois has the highest exodus of citizens, period. And the great migration of blacks moving to Chicago has reversed. They call it the great remigration. And I mean, but nobody really wants to talk about it because, you know, it doesn't fit their narrative that we're such a great place to live. I know people who are moving to Indiana. I was looking at housing in Indiana. Not only do you buy a nice home, there's no crime. The property rates here in Chicago would be 12 grand. My property taxes down there would be 2. And I'm 45 minutes from downtown.
And that's what I've been told.
Lori, duh.
Yeah. And that's just it. I think everybody who can will leave the state of Illinois. And what I'm talking about people who have jobs. I'm talking about people who have the means, the financial means to seek out better, more welcoming states.
Right.
You know, everyone talks about moving to Texas, but you're talking about Texas and Florida and Tennessee and, you know, Nevada, where the taxes are substantially more favorable to the middle class and to the individual and to the business owner. I mean, take, for example, all right, some of the states that I just mentioned, they do not have a personal income tax like Illinois.
Right.
So there you're saving a substantial amount of money.
Well,
many of the states that we've discussed don't have an estate tax. So if you leave the state of Illinois and move to one of these other states, and heaven forbid, you know, you and I probably have another 100 years to live, but when we pass, then our states go to our children, okay, there's a substantial savings for that as well. But if you stay in the state of Illinois, the state's going to take a big chunk of what you've spent your whole lifetime earning and saving.
And I remember when Bill Clinton was trying to tax life insurance proceeds. And I mean, wait a minute. This is a poor hillbilly from Arkansas who says, you know, well, we just need to take some of that money and go to an individual. We need to tax that money too. I mean, who are these people who think they can take, again, Bill Clinton, career politician, career government tit sucker, trying to take our money. Okay, Barack Obama. Well, we could just tax the people. Maggie Thatcher said it best. Socialism works well until you run out of other people's money. She said government has no money except the money that it takes from the citizens' checking accounts, retirement saving accounts, pension plans. The government has no money except the money that it takes. So that's not revenue that it takes from people. It should be called something else. It should not be called revenue. You generate tax money, and you know, it's like a serf system. You know, it's like the old what do they call it? The fiefdoms or serfdoms, where you have the barons and the lords, and they're all, you know, governors and state reps and state senators and congressmen and senators, U.S. Senate. They're all the barons, kind of. You know, we're going to take money from the people and we're just going to tax the hell out of them because that's really our money. They're breathing our air. They're in our district. You know, I mean, really?
Well, you know, what's interesting is, luckily for the Governor Pritzker, okay, shortly after he came into office, and I don't recall the exact amount from the federal government, okay, due to some of the policies of the president, we received, I want to say, over $1 billion for our roads.
Mhm.
And so he was able to take some money. And of course, he's calling it a win for himself, although it had nothing to do with him. And so they're now using those proceeds to, increase their spending. So I can't wait, in the next 3 years or so, what's going to happen to this state. But I'm sure he's hoping that his passage of the marijuana laws and the gambling casinos, that they're going to save the state of Illinois.
I don't think so. I think that people are going to continue to leave the state. I know that people are renting instead of buying. They're selling their homes, and they're just downsizing and getting used to the fact that they're not going to be spending their money in or have their residence in the state of Illinois. So you come and
I can't agree with you more.
I just see that from folks. Hey, well, look, we got about a minute here, and I just want to give you the last minute, so you can go ahead and close out.
Well, thank you, Charles. Again, thank you for having me on today and mentioning the event that we had last Saturday. We are going to go forward, with our dialogue, with our conversation, with the forgotten within the Illinois Republican Party, and not even just within that party, because I believe that there are others that don't want to be labeled, and I think that's something that we, as a total community, should be down on.
We have
labeled.
20 seconds,
and So, but we're going to keep moving forward, and we're going to keep having events where we can all get together and reach out. So I hope you will have us, have me back on so that I can announce the next event once we have it planned.
Oh yeah.
And Charles, I greatly appreciate all your support for that event, as well as seeing you on Tuesday.
Okay, thank you. You too. Thanks for inviting me. Appreciate it.
Right.
Appreciate it, Amy. Lori, take care. I appreciate you.
All right, Charles.
Okay, bye-bye. It's Lori, Yokohama, folks. Hey, look, we'll be back Monday, and we'll be here doing our thing. And we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to talk about reparations and Iran.